Hello. Folks, tonight we're going to test out that old saying, in space, no one can hear you yawn. We are talking, of course, about Alien Romulus, the latest, the first feature, the first Alien feature under the Disney banner, if I'm not mistaken, since they bought Fox.
Yes.
And yeah, I was excited for this movie because I heard that Fede Alvarez was taking the helm, both as director and as screenwriter or co-screenwriter in this case. The trailer I thought looked okay, but still interesting. And yeah, my feelings about the movie are so passionate that I went from, and Jeff can attest to this, from me texting him the moment the movie ended to try and warn him because he was going to a later screening, to the opposite side where I got to tonight, complete apathy. So I'm looking forward to breaking into this movie with Jeff York of The Establishing Shot and Pipeline Artists, and Mark the Movie Man Krawczyk of Special Mark Productions and the Spoiler Room Podcast. Gentlemen, how are you doing this fine evening?
That's a loaded question for me, but let's just say I'm feeling better than I did Monday evening. So, but still dancing with COVID a go-go. Probably will taper off by the end of the week, hopefully, because it usually runs about 4 or 5 days. I've had the vaxes, so that's helped. But
Mark, I'm surprised that you didn't either make one up or order one, because I have to have them. Do they have like face hugger masks at this point?
No, all the IP masks were too expensive. They always were too expensive. Even on my
just taking it off the popcorn helmet, Mark.
Yeah, even on my store where I have merchandise that no one buys, you have the option of doing customized masks, and I was like, I can't have people pay that much for a mask. That's ridiculous. So, no mask for me. But
well, that's okay. I'll still take your avatar, however it can get you. It's good to have you here.
Yeah, I just figure it's better this way than that's so people aren't distracted by my mask stuff. So,
well, that's cool. We're here to talk aliens. So lots of reason for distraction tonight. Because my mind was wandering during this 2 hours, but hopefully that won't be the case tonight. Let me just get the temperature in the room. Mark, what did you make of Alien Romulus?
I dug it. I had a lot of fun with this movie.
Okay.
I enjoyed it quite a bit. I went in with zero expectations.
Wait, no. We got to pull over. Zero expectations?
Yes, zero expectations, because when you hear that you're doing a legacy film and you're doing it between two other films, especially with sci-fi, which hasn't happened often, but especially for us horror fans, you tend to make the film not feel like it's actually belongs in that time period. So you get a film that's supposed to be between two films or whatnot. It's another film, and you get that, but stuff looks either too slick, or you've got CGI where there wasn't CGI, or you got LCD screens when you didn't have LCD screen. Stuff like that. For me, turns me off if they're going to do one of these, filler movies or whatever in between, and you have that. I mean, I had the feeling similar to Rogue Squadron in a way. Not Rogue Squadron.
Rogue One.
Rogue One. Because some of the special effects in Rogue One and some of the production design did not feel like it fit in the time period it was in. And when they did try it, it was too forced. So for me, I went in just going, okay, let's see what you've got. I heard it, I like Fede Alvarez is hit or miss with me, I should say. But I went in and watched it. And when we get the first opening scene with CRT screens and the text font and all the displays looking pretty much like they were during the time of Alien and Aliens, I'm like, okay, production design's already got me. I'm here, because we've been so inundated in the genre with comic book films and massive CGI films. The fact that they went practical wherever they possibly could in this film, for me, being a big practical effects junkie, I dug it. I dug it quite a bit. and they kind of hooked me right in the beginning, going, okay, I see what you're doing here. What else do you got? And I had fun. With this film. I wasn't bored. It is what it is. My son, who's actually not seen the other Alien films, he's seen all the Predator films, but none of the Alien films. I know I failed as a father. I know. But he loved it too. He enjoyed it quite a bit as well. And he's the generation that it, kind of you want to try to pull in. So he dug it as well and wants to watch the other films. So, when the credits rolled in that, I had a few problems with it, but for the most part, up until I would say maybe the last 10 minutes, it really had me. I was enjoying it quite a bit. And then we get to this whole other thing to where it could have ended at one spot, but they kept going. And if they
going. Yeah.
If they would have kept going a little further, I was going to go, you're knocking it down real quick. You're giving me Alien Resurrection vibes here. But then again, I don't like Alien 3 either. I still don't like Alien 3. But this one came in third out of all the Alien films. This one is probably my third favorite of the series.
Okay.
So I'll be quiet and I'll let you two shred the film. I've said my piece. So there you go.
Well, there's gonna be a lot of shredding. I don't know if we can bring you around at all, Mark, but you said something very interesting about, and I've heard this from a couple of people who this is like their first or second Alien film that they really enjoyed it. And, I think that's sort of my problem. It's very cynical in a way. Jeff, you messaged me shortly after I got out of the movie and said some kind of a comment about like, this movie was written by AI. And I kind of balk at that because I'm like, but the further I get away from it, the further I feel like, yeah, this definitely does feel like it was written by prompts. Like I need a quote unquote new Alien movie that encompasses every other movie in the franchise. And it's all here. And so if you're coming into it, yeah, it's probably going to be really enjoyable because they take the stuff that made even the weaker of the other films, interesting or occasionally fun and put it in here. But having watched the entire franchise and really treated it, seriously, even when the movies didn't treat themselves seriously, I thought all the callbacks, the lack of originality, the lack of needing to exist, very tiresome. I was enraged in the first 3 minutes. The CRT screens are fine, but it's a choice. It's a production design choice, and that's okay. But for me, it's all about the story. And what those CRT screens are coming on in is a ship from Weyland-Yutani Corporation. We are talking spoilers. That is going out into the debris of the Nostromo and picking up the cocooned, sort of fossilized remnants of the xenomorph we saw at the end of Alien. Two problems. One, when Ripley escapes the Nostromo before the shuttle confrontation with the creature, that ship undergoes, I said too, Jeff, it's 3 nuclear explosions in space. So I don't know how there's a debris field. I certainly don't know how there's a large enough chunk of the hull that you can clearly make out the name Nostromo on it. Mm-hmm. And then secondly, and this is something I misinterpreted because I misremembered, but it still kind of works. I initially thought, well, the alien got blown up in that explosion too. No, it was the shuttle encounter, but it did get incinerated by the afterburners of the ship. I mean, it was right up in there and it got blasted out into space after having been hooked on the grappling hook. Now, I can understand this is an alien. We don't quite understand all of its physiology, but we have seen from the other movies, which haven't happened at this point in the timeline, really, except for Prometheus, Covenant, and Alien, that they can be blown up. They can be set on fire and damaged. So I don't know how something like that wouldn't take it out. And I also understand Ripley flew very far away from that ship, and then they kept flying as the whole encounter was happening. So how did this cocoon end up back in the same debris field as the remnants of the Nostromo? It was all very convenient, and I think a sloppy way to set up the movie, which I think had an interesting premise, which is, what if they did find something from that wreckage? Now, from there, the story problems compounded. And by the time they got to the 3 instances of characters in this movie reciting lines from movies that hadn't happened yet, I was like, nobody making this movie cares about making an actual Alien film. They care about the IP. And Disney so far is 3 for 3 for me. They've killed Marvel, they've killed Star Wars, and they've killed Alien for me. I have no interest in watching anything that this company has to produce. So I'm willing to time capsule all my favorite stuff and just move ahead with something else. But Jeff,
well, don't
I'm
forget
monologuing.
the,
I want you to tell me
don't-
your high level thoughts.
Don't forget the live action version of the animated classics, which not only are cannibalizing their own family, but sort of delivering diminished returns with each subsequent live action adaptation. And if you've seen the Snow White trailer, I think you know where that one's going. I will start by agreeing with Mark on a number of points, but I also think in some respects this is the problem with films today. So let me elaborate just for a moment. I think the film is well produced. The filmmakers have a sense of set direction, a certain mood, little things that are scary, like seeing suddenly 6 of the sort of face huggers holding the door to get out, and you think, oh, maybe they're not going to get up, but they're strong enough to then open it up, and then they kind of scramble like almost an attack of tarantulas or something. The practical effects, by and large, work very well. I always fear these kind of things because there's a weightlessness to CGI and there is a fakeness to them that oftentimes, and we're getting very sophisticated watching this, where you can see the eye lines don't match. They're not looking at anything because there's nothing there except a tennis ball on a stick. And if this thing is moving around or has eyes, it's the other actor in it is forced to work with something that isn't there, so it looks fake. Good for them for deciding to put somebody in a suit and X, Y, and Z, all these other things, which is great. I will also compliment, I think, Kaylee Spaney continues her ascent as an interesting new actress in Hollywood. And David Johnson gives a very good performance, walking a very tightrope, playing the synthetic Andy who has to be damaged and slow early on and then become shrewd and cold when he's given the new chip to change his directive. And I think he plays both very well without chewing the scenery. I mean, it's a very subtle shift, but he's good. It's mostly his body language and how long he waits to say a line, which I think was a very smart and shrewd take on it from this young actor. I will say this. I was sort of going into it, unlike you, Mark, with wincing expectations, because I thought we have now had 7 or 8 films of this, and we have yet to deal with the film's primary plot objective, which every film has subsequently lost the plot of since then, and that is these were being captured, nabbed, to bring home to work as basically soldiers, weapons of mass destruction, whatever. We never get them home. Now, supposedly the new series is going to do that on TV. We'll see. But how many times do I have to see these idiots walk into a trap? It's a trap. And, become fodder for, cocoons and face huggers and acid drips and everything else. But what really gets me mad about this film, and I'm sort of with Ian on this, and I think this is the big problem, like I said, with films today. They can be well made. They can have a certain amount of je ne sais quoi and performance and set direction and maybe even a score that conjures up Jerry Goldsmith, who I love. And so thank you for conjuring up a little bit of Jerry Goldsmith. That's an homage. Most of this is derivative as hell and is unoriginal as hell. And that pisses me off because I think this felt like a fan service film rather than a genuine movie. To your point about the lines that haven't been said yet, the fact that there are any of those lines, the fact that there are any of the shots that are being recreated, the fact that we have to go, oh, look, he's showing her how to hold the rifle, just like Burke did in whoever not Burke, but the other guy, Michael Yann's character.
Hicks, yeah.
Hicks, that's right, Hicks. Burke was the Paul
Reiser. And we'll talk about him in a second.
That kind of stuff started to really get to me because it was like, where are the characters? Okay, the one girl is pregnant. The one guy is an asshole. The one gal is bald and sassy. Full stop on their characterizations. And I know that we've brought back Peter Cushing and Carrie Fisher, but man, to go with Ian Holm, he is the 3rd lead in this film, and it's hard to watch. He's such a main character. He's ostensibly the villain again here, and yet it's not quite great. The AI, CGI on that, and this is where I get to my point about, at times to me this felt like it was written by AI. I think that the filmmakers had a good elevator pitch. What if we have this in-between thing between Alien and Aliens, where they go in there, they don't know what they're walking into, but they're looking to get freedom because they've got this terrible job and they're basically slaves, and they don't know what they're walking into. And then, of course, these things happen, but we'll find little ways to twist it, like it's a spider colony or whatever else. Okay, not bad. It's not the most original thing. It's less confusing than Covenant and Prometheus, but I'll give you that much. And these people aren't any more prepared for it than the garbage scow that was in the original Alien, essentially, kind of doing the cleanup service. But by the time you get to that second hour, it's nothing but, hey, we've run out of an idea, ChatGPT. Go through all the other Alien movies and cull the best parts and fill out the skeleton here for me. What could I do? Well, that great line, "Get away from her, you bitch." We'll have somebody say that, and oh boy, everybody will laugh in the audience and hoot and holler. It's like, why is that in there? Why are these scenes in there? Why are these shots in there? Why is all of the same beats in there? It's almost like they gave up. And like I said, this is to me what is scary about these kind of movies, is it's just good enough and it needs to be great. And AI is a tool. It is left unchecked. It can be careless and stupid. And that's what I thought this movie was. Now, they may have been the filmmakers doing that and not ChatGPT and AI at all, but it felt stupid. It felt like the kind of stuff that AI does when they put 6 fingers on a hand, and nobody has ever had 6 fingers on a hand. So why is the illustration putting 6 fingers on a hand? I don't know that. But why would Andy say, "Get away from her, 1,000, 1,000, you bitch"? He would not say that. But it's there because that was the line that everybody hooted and hollered at when Aliens showed Sigourney Weaver coming out of that contraption, ready to fight the mother alien. That kind of stuff drives me nuts. And it's I feel like these people aren't even filmmakers sometimes. I feel like the studio heads aren't looking at this as entertainers. They're looking at it as, what we're going to do? We're going to check all these boxes that get all these fanboys hooting and hollering because they know it and they're going to love us for it. But the more they did that here, I liked it less and less. And by the end, when you've got literally 3 endings that you could have ended with the one, I think, and been fine. But, well, let's push it to 2 hours and let's keep having these false endings. And, that alien mother still, that alien still coming back. And is there any juice in that gun still? Oh, yes, of course. I mean, I think I could have almost stopped at about the hour and a half mark and said, I'm going to go into the lobby now and I'm going to write down what happens in the next half hour. And I'll bet I matched the ChatGPT on it.
I mean, good points.
Without having seen it.
Well, it occurs to me something that there's so much potential in the alien mythos.
Yeah.
That, even just like throwaway lines, like in Aliens, which I understand takes place after this movie, but it's only like 30 years, I think, after the events of Romulus. There's that bit where the Marines are talking to each other and they're talking about, 2 of them are saying like, essentially they went out to a brothel or something on some other mission. It's like, the one you had was a man. And the guy's like, doesn't matter if they're Arcturian, baby. Like, yeah. So that implies that there are other life forms or species that Weyland-Yutani or the Space Marines have encountered. And yet we've only seen humans, synthetics, and xenomorphs, and I guess technically the Predator, but we won't talk about that
right.
that crossover. But
still, they
I'm
are
not saying that
parts of the sequel world, if you will. I mean, the franchise world, unfortunately.
Right, but do something with that. Open it up. I did like in this movie, Fede Alvarez. I think the only thing that really comes out shining in here is some of that connective tissue, but it's connective tissue that the imagination doesn't need. Like what happens when a chest burster pops out and then it runs away, as they always do, and then like a day later it's this 9-foot tall creature. Well, we see what happens. It sticks itself to a wall in a giant vaginal cocoon and eventually comes out. It's cute. It's a neat trick for a horror segment, but even that, I don't care how dumb a character is. This is beyond belief. Sticking a giant cattle prod into this giant cocoon thing to try and kill this monster that you don't even know if it can be killed.
Right.
I question the choices.
And see, that's for us. That's for the fanboys watching, because it doesn't make sense plot wise, to your very point. That's because, don't do that. That's not going to help, but it's really there because they want that reaction from us, as opposed to, I don't know, maybe this will help. Oh, shoot, it didn't.
But here's the thing, like I like the aftermath of that scene where that character, the alien attacks him, but it gets or he wounds it and it starts dripping acid out of the thing, and it gets on his arms, and he eventually gets kind of stuck because he falls to the floor, and then eventually a giant glob of acid eats through his tunic and melts his heart. We don't actually see that, but we understand what's happening. I was saying, if that had been in the original Alien and we'd seen, Harry Dean Stanton, if that had happened to him, that would have been exciting. But one of the issues I have with this movie is it's about these kind of Gen Z kids. It's more like a Friday the 13th movie in space, or Jason X to be precise. The bit where they get into the shuttle and then the shuttle goes haywire. It's kind of flying around the station. I'm like, there was a riff on that 23 years ago in Jason X. It didn't work there then either. Here, the thing goes all the way around the space station and then crash lands helpfully into a shuttle bay so that we can have a let's get to the other side of the station kind of chase moment.
Here's what I don't get.
Jeff, here's what I don't get.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Sure. No, please.
Back to my point. Why does this movie exist when we have other movies that have explored the same ideas, the same tension better, even to the point where at the end of this film, you have Rain, the Kaylee Spaney character, in a shuttle flying off into space, doing the whole this
underwear, which is a tank and panties and barefoot too. It's just like, oh my God, the callbacks.
Is this supposed to lead to something? Because by the time it was over, I left the theater not wanting a follow-up, but wondering, is this supposed to be just a bridge between Alien and Aliens? Because it didn't add anything to our understanding of the universe, but it also doesn't feel like it's left open for a sequel. What did feel like was left open for a sequel was Alien Covenant, a movie that I didn't like very much, especially because at the end, once again, as with all these movies, it just becomes the climax of Alien. But at the end of that movie, the very end, David, the malevolent android, has Catherine Waterston. He's putting her to sleep in the cryo chamber, and she realizes that he has switched himself out with the identical good robot, and he's basically hijacking this ship full of like 1,000 people to go to a planet to do experiments on them. I'm like, that's kind of a chilling ending. And I was like, okay, what's going to be the follow-up to this? And the follow-up, much like A Quiet Place Part 2, is there is no follow-up. We're going to end on a cliffhanger and then go back to a prequel.
They set up a sequel there that would have probably moved the story forward, and they didn't. I mean, the question I think for all of us, and you as well too, Mark, as a horror and sci-fi aficionado, is what is the purpose of this film? And see, for me, I always think in the back of my mind, it was a good quote from Daniel Craig when he was starting out as James Bond. He was doing some different things and went, art house in between the Bond films. And he said something good. Whether he's lived up to it entirely in his resume remains to be argued about another time. But he said, I think as an actor, everything you have to do, every choice you make has to add to the resume. And what he meant by that is it can't just be, well, I'm going to do this one, even though it's shit, but boy, they're paying me a lot. The kind of Michael Caine school of like, yes, I did Jaws 4, and my mother thanks you for the lovely house I bought with it. No, that's not good, Michael. That's not the way to think. And I like the way Daniel Craig is thinking, but to use that lesson or that kind of modus operandi, where is that here? Because I hear you, Mark, like, well, my son liked it. A young generation liked it. Of course, that's why it's Gen Z, in this one where Yaphet Kotto was in his 40s when he did Alien, so we're going for the younger audience and all that. But is this then going to become the next Alien franchise? Are we going to follow Rain and Andy for a while? Or are they going to be in the TV show? I don't know. But I don't get that from this film. But what I do get is that these people are just saying, well, we're going to do this because we can, because we're going to play all the greatest hits and it all looks the same. And fanboys who know the original and love the original will like that. And the new people who've never seen it before will think it's cool and edgy and all that stuff. But where is the story? Is there only one place where the aliens exist? It's now on this ship. Why aren't there aliens somewhere else? If these aliens are so goddamn smart and, the perfect machine, as David said, right? Didn't he say they're the perfect creature and all this? And
perfect organism, yeah.
The perfect organism. They reproduce. They don't need to eat, blah, 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 this, that, the other thing. They're made of acid. They grow up fast, blah, blah, blah. All right, show me that. Show me that this one's in a sunny retirement home on some planet and somehow the alien's there and taking over that part of the planet. I mean, all this, H.R. Geiger repeats and art direction, as beautiful as it is and scary and moody, there's got to be something else you can do now after 8 films. Then we're just going to do the greatest hits. I just think it's cynical. There's a cynicism to it and a laziness. It's like the studio's like, oh yeah, Alien, I saw that when I was 7 and holy man, I didn't sleep for a week. Have you seen all the other movies? Because they're they're not helping move the original story forward either, and nor is this. In fact, God love Ridley Scott for at least trying with Prometheus and Covenant to tell the backstory here. Though again, I'm not a big backstory guy, but where's the story about these things being these brilliant organisms that are taking over other places and continuing on, and or being sort of recruited, if you will, as war machines? Instead, it's the same 7 people as sitting ducks. I don't understand that thinking. It's like you have to do something else, and they don't.
Well, and I think
other than Prometheus and Covenant.
Well, and here's the thing: watching Alien Romulus, I appreciate those movies more because they at least tried something kind of different. Except when they didn't, and they get mired in Alien. And I think there was some trepidation on the part of Fox of like, well, we can't have a movie set in this universe that doesn't actually have the xenomorph in it. I'm like, yeah, you can, because the original Alien, it didn't have the xenomorph in it until it did, and up until that happens, you've got this fascinating story about, it's been said a million times before, truckers in space. But even if they had never encountered the xenomorph, I would have spent the entire movie just watching the interplay between Brett and Parker and Ripley and Ash. And that's the other thing, aside from Rain and Andy, because he's the android and they say their names the most out of this movie, I can't tell you the names of any of the other characters in this movie. But one thing, it's talking about what's the point. The point is not to honor the legacy of Alien, because I think in order to do that, you have to really pay attention. There's a face. The thing this franchise has in common is there's always a face hugger scene. There's always a chest burster scene, and this one didn't have a queen in it, which I'm surprised.
The bodies cocoon like they're being saved for later. I mean, just that's become the thing now since Aliens.
But yes, but in Alien, we establish egg, face hugger comes out of egg, attaches to host. There's an incubation period. I don't know how long it was, but I got the feeling it was like. They might have said it because they were trying to get the ship back up and running to get off the rock, but it was like 20 hours, 24 hours or something like that. It was a long time that this thing was sitting on, oh my gosh, I can't remember his name. Yeah. But what was the name of the character? The character who got the face hugger in the first Alien.
Oh, Kane, I think, wasn't it?
Kane,
John
yes.
Hurt? Yeah, John Hurt.
I don't know why I love that character and it's not coming to me, but so thank you. It was on Kane's face, and then it kind of falls off, dies, and then sometime after that, maybe it was like an hour or two later because they're having dinner, then the chest burster comes out. In Romulus, a character is that scene that we've all seen in the trailers where there's 36 face huggers in this lab, and like a bunch of them get unfrozen and they come out and they start attacking people. But they all bust into this room. One of them flies across the room and attaches to a character's face. From the time she gets impregnated or the thing attaches to her to the time they get it off.
Yep.
And they go to this shuttle and the chest burster comes out.
Mm-hmm.
in movie time is about 15 minutes.
Yep.
So I'm supposed to believe that this egg thing was implanted and interrupted while implanting, allegedly, to a full-grown baby monster inside this chest that's coming out in 15 minutes. Now, there's a scene, it's a famous scene that's now on the Blu-ray for the box set of Aliens, and also you can find it on YouTube if you look. It was filmed but never released. It's a deleted scene from Aliens, and pardon me if you know about this one, but in the original cut of the film, Carter Burke, who's the agent of the company, played brilliantly by Paul Reiser.
Right.
He ditches all of the Marines and Ripley as they're fighting it out in the lab. He runs away, gets cornered by one of the alien drones, and that's the last we see of him. We assume that he got eaten or something, because you see the mouth come open and things spring out.
Right.
But in the deleted scene, during the whole sequence where Ripley goes back to save Newt, she has to go through the hive, and she encounters Burke cocooned in the wall.
Right.
And he says, "I can feel it inside me, Ripley, help me." And so she hands him a grenade and then walks away, which is great.
Yeah.
But the reason it was taken out of the film is because Cameron or whoever was watching, the rough print, from what I understand, realized, wait a second, this doesn't make any sense, because in the last movie, it took like a day just for the thing to gestate. And this one, he just got kidnapped like 2 hours ago. It doesn't make any sense. We're cutting it out. Right. In this movie, nobody cares about that stuff.
Right.
And to listen to Alvarez and the people who are involved in it, they love Alien. They love the franchise. They love the legacy. No, they don't. They love the aesthetics, because this movie, this series, foremost is about horror. It's about science fiction and horror. This is just about pretty stuff.
I would also argue, and again, I Mark, if I could see your face, maybe I wouldn't be interrupting you. So chime in. But I just want to make a point, because you made an interesting thing that I have a thought on, and that is when you say they love the aesthetics of it. I agree with that, and I think that's what most of the filmmakers, in some respects, who are with the Alien versus Predator, it's kind of cynical filmmaking, because it's all about the aesthetics. It's about, how would we do a Predator versus the Alien? Well, the one guy can spew acid, so you can't really wound him, but the other guy has all these nifty gadgets, but whatever. And there's that kind of stuff operating here. But let's go back to that movie Alien for a second too, because I don't think that movie gets enough credit for how clever it is. For starters, to your point about Kane, based on the way the movie starts and spools out, and I'd say the first 45 minutes of the film, you think that the captain and Kane are the two main characters. Because Kane is the guy who we see first wake up, and then he's the guy who's going down to the planet to investigate, and he's the one who's looking at this stuff. He's kind of brave, he's kind of strong, and he's, one of the scientists or whatever. And then he's the one who's attacked, and we're invested in him, and we want him to be okay. And by nature of the captain being the captain, and it's the only actor we know in that movie at that point, Tom Skerritt, who had a sort of a previous bit of fame with MASH and some other movies after that. Most of the others were virtually unknown, including Sigourney Weaver. Those are the two we're invested in. And then the big shock, just almost like Janet Leigh in Psycho, or other characters like Angie Dickinson in Dressed to Kill, when they're killed off, before you think it's Steven Seagal in Executive Decision, right?
Oh, yeah.
You're not going to make it. You are. Bye, Steven. I hope you enjoyed your $1 million. But so there's those kind of rug pulls and those surprises. And then we think that there's this whole thing that is Sigourney Weaver, the villain. She's the one who doesn't want to bring him in. Remember, she's the one who's quoting protocol. Like, we're not supposed to do this, Ash. No, please, and then we suddenly think he's the nice guy. Of course, he's John Teal, and he's British and everything else. And, she's the tough chick. And, that's about all we know about her, because there's no expectation with her. That's clever writing. That's clever characterization. And I think it's even more personified when they, of course, send the daring do handsome captain to go in and see what's going on. And we think he's just in there to investigate something, and beep, 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 beep. And then he's gone too. Now we have no idea what's going on. We don't know who's going to live, who's what's going on. And then when Ash is revealed, oh my God, that's a synthetic, that's a robot, and he's been sent there to do this. Oh shit. Let alone the fact that this cat who goes all over the place and manages to avoid getting killed, because I think the alien appreciates another feral creature who's not doing anything to harm him. I mean, some people, Mark, this is almost a point I think you may have made it somewhere. Maybe you said in a conversation somewhere, but maybe these are the interlopers and the alien is defending his land. These people are coming at him with guns, grabbing him and dissecting him and poking shit into him. And, he doesn't see the cat as an intruder, but he sees these humans as that. But where are those elements in this film? That, in fact, the only question is the romantic lead potentially for Rain going to survive? No, he's not.
No.
But I mean that he hangs on longer. Like I thought, oh, they might get rid of him early. No, they hang on to the pregnant woman a tad longer than I thought, though they don't give her much character other than she's pregnant. And I don't know if we really see her die. We see the alien thing, half human, half alien, sort of suckling at her, which is just creepy as hell. And I thought maybe he'd keep his mom alive, but I don't know. But they're missing the clever story that was part of Alien. And I think a lot of these films have just become, to your point, it's Jason, where the alien is just killing these people one by one until we're down to the main star who got top billing. And yet that was not evident in Alien.
I find it funny that you mentioned that this is cynical filmmaking, but then you also mentioned Alien 3 at the beginning of our conversation, including Alien 1, 2, and 3 as those being a kind of a bar. When Alien 3, well, you included Alien 1, 2, and then you mentioned 3, and then you said the rest kind of taper off in quality, but...
No, I didn't say that. I actually said 1 and 2, and then I think I said beyond that I didn't like them. But if I did, I didn't mean it. But anyway,
you mentioned 3.
Show me where I'm wrong. Tell me where I'm wrong.
I may have misheard, but
maybe I misquoted too. But I did not like Alien 3. I mean, I don't know if I've liked any of the Alien movies since the second one.
See, and for me, I enjoyed Prometheus when it came out, when a lot of people hated on it. I enjoyed Covenant a little less, mainly because of the ending. I didn't need to know the origin of the eggs. I didn't need to know that.
Yeah,
really. And in this one, I enjoyed it quite a bit because first off, I took it off as a standalone film, even though they had the throwbacks. And I'm with you guys. We didn't need some of the lines in there that were, especially the "get away from her, you bitch." That line for me bugged me. And it was sad that it was Andy that said it, because Andy's my favorite character in this film, and he's performed beautifully by Johnson. I love his performance in here. I love the fact they made him a synthetic who had a glitch, because when they first introduced him, I'm like, well, I'm all for representation. Here we go. We have our character who may be, may have a condition, or maybe autistic in some way, or be on the spectrum. I was kind of concerned because when you venture to that territory, if you don't portray it right, it is bad. I'm looking at The Darkness with Kevin Bacon, where they had a kid who was autistic, and the way they portrayed that was way off. And that really angered me, because I have a friend who has a kid who, when he was born, everything nonverbal, autistic. Kids come a long way. Beautiful, wonderful guy, a young man now. So when they made him a synth, I'm like, okay, I'm a little bit better now with that portrayal. And I loved how he switched immediately with the disc. I guess I loved more than I hated. And it was until the end, where the way this should have ended, which would have been like, just, wow, I really want to watch this. I may want to watch it again, is have it to where she puts her pregnant friend into the stasis, who has the embryo inside her, and then she goes and she gets into stasis, and they take off. Now the alien is been put in stasis in her, and they're going to their supposed promised land planet, where Andy's not going to be welcome, and we never know what actually happened to the black samples, all of them that they stole. She only used one. The rest are still sitting on the ship. So if you end it there, and maybe a shot with the samples sitting on the ship, You leave it at a little bit of a cliffhanger, let the audience expand. Then if you really want to do a sequel to this, you could, and you have it to where they get to the planet, guys who rescue them from the ship that comes into orbit because it's a rickety ship. They happen to find the sample. They take it down to the planet, and someone accidentally either breaks a vial or whatnot. The black goo gets, and now you've got aliens on their idyllic planet that has no sense. That'd be a sequel if they ended it properly. But when they end it and you get, what is it, the engineer alien, I'm like, okay. Yeah. I'm like, I was really enjoying this film. I was forgiving a couple of things until now. And now you're just giving me Alien Resurrection vibes and the albino alien. And the thing is, they didn't need to do that. And I guess for me, the rest of it, I actually, while I get your guys' feelings completely on everything that you said, I guess for me, I was entertained, which was the most part for me. I didn't feel like insulted it. I felt that they stumble in a few parts, and I didn't care for the fact they were trying to connect it to some of the other movies, like when they go into the lab and we get the black goo that's extracted from the xenomorph that they had found. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, I could kind of forgive that because we established kind of that's where it came from. So, okay. I'm like, that's as much as the black goo as I need to see. And I was hoping that's all we would get to see of the black goo was that. Okay.
See, I think go ahead. I'm sorry.
And I didn't mind Ian Holm bringing him back because I didn't mind it because he suddenly played a little bit more of a part in the plot rather than just having him show up. Hey, look, we did an Ian Holm deepfake, and then, that's it. The thing is, they didn't have to use a deep fake. They could have left his face either mangled from an alien acid or kept it covered with white blood and maybe had his voice distorted a little, but still talking. You could have done it that way and had it look better. But
see, Mark, can I interrupt a second? Because I think this is to me, this is the stuff where if we're going to be critics and not just people who are going to a movie to enjoy a film, I think we have to ask more. And I'm not saying that you're wrong on this, but I want you to ask more of this film than you are. I don't think it's enough to say, oh, I was entertained and my son liked it and it's pretty well done. No, those are all good points. I don't think that's enough with this franchise. Not 8 pictures in. Not with a sci-fi world more than horror that is attempting to be intellectual of some sort, especially based on Prometheus and Covenant, which went way off the deep end. Like, Jesus H. Christ, do I need a goddamn, Wikipedia page on this to even understand what's going on here? I just don't think that stuff is enough for this movie. Not 8 films in, not after those 2 films. I want more out of this stuff. And I think they are, again, just good enough. And I think that too often passes for sequels today and prequels and the Hollywood mindset about what they're putting out for consumption. Yes, audiences don't want to have to, look up the encyclopedia any more than I do. But at the same time, I think it's not enough to just say, we're so lazy here that we're going to rely on the aesthetics alone to think that that's going to be cool for everybody. And most people will think so and be fine with that. And then completely drop the ball on original storytelling, character development, and an hour that doesn't rip off. And I mean, rip off stuff. The Ian Holm thing, I get that. They had to do that with Peter Cushing. They had to do it with Carrie Fisher. Did they have to do it here? I don't know.
Well, no, but because, I mean, and maybe he didn't want to come back.
But here's my challenge as a filmmaker, to the filmmaker. What could you do without that? Who else could be there? Or what could serve that? Is it a new character? Is it a new thing? I mean, you've got the Michael Fassbender character. I'm not suggesting that he's somehow on the ship, but is he? Is he there because it's 7 months in and he's investigating and he's there? I don't know. But instead, it's just, the audience reaction when I saw was like, oh. And I thought, am I a Deadpool and Wolverine? That's the kind of stuff they're doing here. It's the same in-joke, rib, poke to the rib stuff. And I just think this movie is smarter than that and should be. This franchise is smarter than that, isn't it?
Well, no. I mean, I think it was.
It was at one point. Even Aliens, the third one, as much as I didn't like it, was trying to say something about humanity. I'm not sure this one has any thoughts in it at all, other than just entertain and recall the other films.
Well, the thing is, there was, and this is one of my frustrations, I think, with Romulus, is there were two, I think, ideas that really could have worked if they'd been explored. One is this idea that these mining kids that look, no one in this cohort of kids who are exploring the space station, I'm calling them kids, are like the late teens, early 20s.
Right.
We're supposed to believe they've been brought up in this rough and tumble, like everybody's dying, there's disease everywhere, mining colony. No, they look like they just all stepped off the set of a CW TV show.
Exactly.
Right. There's no grit. There's no,
Right.
divots and pock marks in their faces. You need like Harry Dean Stanton. I'm going back to the original Alien. All those people look like they grew up and lived and were going to die in deep space.
Yeah.
But in the idea that they were going to escape this Weyland-Yutani colony and go fly 9 years off to another planet that was beyond their reach somehow, yet did not accept synthetics. And so it's like, okay, they brought Andy along because he could pilot the ship, which turned out to be a space station because they miscalculated, they were misled. But he would drop them off essentially and then just have to hover outside in this ship because they wouldn't let him down there. That was kind of interesting and very sad. But the other thing is involving the black goo. When I saw that drum that we saw in Covenant and Prometheus, I rolled my eyes, but I thought it was interesting. This is the one time I can recall an Alien movie where they're not talking about this as a weapon. They're talking about it as an enhancement to man, because they realize this is the perfect organism. What if we splice together human alien DNA to create a person who's impervious to the elements, who can be a drone? It's really dumb when you think about it, because they already know how to make androids. Like what do you need an alien human hybrid for when you have
good android population they've got going?
Right. But here's the other thing. Okay. Andy is a synthetic that was owned by the Weyland-Yutani Corporation and discarded. And Rain's father, somehow this guy who grew up, or like I guess he just lived in a mining colony, knew how to repair a Weyland-Yutani android and reprogram it. Sure, but they bring this guy along and he interfaces with Mother. He's able to, Mother is the master program that runs the Weyland-Yutani Corporation. He's able to stick his finger in the door and it accepts his ID code and opens up the door to the space station. Why? I mean, why is this decommissioned, off the books android being allowed to open doors on a super secret experimental black ops space station? Also, if Weyland-Yutani, because they've got Rook, the Ash character here, who's allegedly feeding information back to Mother or whatever, establish that their connection is broken or something, but he's a company robot. His chip gets into Andy and starts influencing him. So we know there's that sort of a neural link between the two. Why hasn't Weyland-Yutani, fully aware probably of what happened on this space station where the xenomorphs got loose and killed everybody and made nests, where's the recovery operation? Are they just going to let this crash land into the rings of this planet, or are they going to? That would have been interesting, at least if they find out, oh, there's no rescue operation because Weyland-Yutani decided, well, we'll make lemons out of lemonade. We'll just have this space station crash onto the planet where there's going to be 70,000 fresh mining host bodies that we can then come and experiment. We got this observation ship over here waiting to see what's going on. All these ideas for stories, and they just float away because we just want to make Alien again. It's really frustrating. And then there's all this talk about, oh, Fede Alvarez, he brings it back to the horror roots. No, there's nothing scary in this movie. All the horror riffs were done better in Aliens. We're in a red room with creatures. There's water everywhere, and the face huggers are going to attack people. When Ripley and Newt are in that room and they're trying to escape the two face huggers, just by ducking under the bed and breaking the glass, much more terrifying than, oh, we've got 30. It's a rule of it's almost like a mathematical equation. 2 monsters is scary. 36 monsters, you're like, what the hell is going on? They would all be dead or cocooned or impregnated by minute 2. But these things which are swimming through the water like lightning fast, all of a sudden they stop swarming the characters long enough for people to have conversations about how to open the door. Later on, there's a touching scene between Rain and Andy in the middle of the alien hive. Did I mention they're in the middle of the alien hive, and these drones, which have just killed Rain's boyfriend, and he gets swarmed by like 5 of them. They're just hanging out. They're not attacking anybody because they want to have this dramatic scene between these 2 characters. I'm like, I don't know what I'm watching here at all.
They've also missed the opportunity to explain to us a little bit more about this species. Like, what is their plan? I mean, were they originally on this one planet? I mean, yeah, I know we kind of get that from the previous movies, but these people don't know it. Would they not want to find some of this out? Or what is this? Is this a science experiment? This is a government thing? I mean, yeah, they have to survive, but there's also really no sort of give and take with them either. I mean, do you remember that scene in Aliens when Ripley saves Newt the second time and she discovers the mom, the big ass mom, and all those eggs? And there's a couple of the grown children, maybe they're the teenagers who are coming in about to attack them, but she's got that big ass flamethrower gun and she sort of puts the flame near the eggs to suggest, like, do you want me to take this whole place up and kill everybody else? Get the kids to back off, Mom. And Mom looks at them and the kids back off and she leaves. And the genius of that end scene is then Ripley decides, I'm going to burn you all anyway. There's nothing like that here where there's give and take, where these aliens have any kind of intelligence or smarts other than, hey, you're there and I mean to kill you now. And they're supposed to be a perfect, wonderful new species. The lack of intellectual curiosity on any of the characters on screen, let alone the filmmakers behind the cameras, is shocking 8 films in, that there's no talk about these things. I mean, you get a little bit of the Ian Holm character doing the same platitudes he did in Alien, but none of that embellishes anything or deepens it.
Well, I want to pick up on something you just said there, Jeff, because this is meant to be a follow-up to Alien.
Right.
Now, this is my problem with all of these legacy sequels and prequels and things that are piggybacking off decades-old established IP. We grew up watching these movies in the release order, but these are made for posterity. Excuse me. They're legendary, iconic movies that people are going to be watching half a century from now. But in that time, when we were coming up, it's like, oh, it's Alien. And then 20 or 15 years later, it's Aliens. Oh my gosh. Now you're like, I'm going to watch these movies in order. You start with Prometheus, you go to Covenant, you go to Alien, you go to this movie. It's by the time you get to the 4th movie in this franchise, you're not expecting anything good. So the best movie out of the series, you're probably going to tune out before you even get there. On top of that, if you get there and you watch Alien and then you watch Romulus, you're going to be thinking as an audience member, when the Rook character, who looks just like Ash for whatever reason, says, I won't lie to you about your chances, but you have my sympathies. You're like, he just said that. Like, I heard that an hour ago at the end of the last movie. What is going on here?
Yeah, that's what I mean by the cynical thing. And I know that's maybe a harsh statement, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend you, Mark, or anybody else. Well, maybe the people who made this, but I think, I
wasn't offended at all.
Oh, good.
But
those kind of things drive me nuts, because I don't think they're thinking. They're just being immediate. Like, this is going to be one hell of a horror movie. That's about as far as it goes to the people who are greenlighting these. And, and then they're spending how much money on this movie? I mean,
well, they only spent they only spent like,
right?
It's $80 million, and
it's still $80 million.
It is, but
that's a TV
I want to say it is, but I'm saying in terms of high profile big studio movies, what was that? Oh my gosh, that movie that came out earlier this year, late last year, was also $80 million, and it was like the robots attacking Earth or something.
The Godzilla movie? It was
Denzel Washington's son, and the
one that was, what was that with the sci-fi thing?
Yeah, but that was also touted as being $80 million, and I think that was also an example of money very well spent. Here's the thing: I can't fault the movie for the aesthetics or the quality of the look of the world, but
Right.
it's not, the screenplay is not worthy of the effort they put into that. And I've watched some behind the scenes featurettes on this movie where they show off like the practical effects. It's kind of interesting to see the face huggers. They're just almost like remote, like RC cars, kind of like going around this set.
Yes.
I'm sure they enhanced some of that with CG later, right?
Yeah.
But
The creator.
Creator. Okay, thank you. But to hear Fede Alvarez and even the people who are making the movie, there's an interview with David Johnson who plays Andy, which is just great. I just watch him talk about making the movie rather than watch the movie he made. But you get the feeling that they're really invested in making the movie. But what are they making? They're making something that is not really meant to be watched twice, especially if you've seen movies that you want to watch again and have probably seen a dozen times, like in the case of Alien and Aliens. I feel like this idea of the franchise at a certain point just needs to die, because unless you actually have something to say, which, again, Ridley Scott swung for the fences with Prometheus and Covenant. But I think by that point, if you're not going to try and close out that trilogy, do something else that's equally interesting. But to something you said, Mark, earlier about how the movie should have ended, would have been cool, but it would have been the exact same ending as Covenant, flying off to a planet and there's aliens on board the ship and it's going to land and cause problems. I mean, that is essentially the through line of this movie. It is like Friday the 13th in that it's the same plot over and over again, but the first Friday the 13th is much of a suspense, kind of like it's a mystery and it's got a great twist ending. No one ever thought, oh, I'm going to go watch this for the highfalutin themes and what it did for, to broaden science fiction or horror or whatever. It's a great slasher movie, followed by some really cool sequels that did push the envelope of the genre, but none of them are also 2 hours long. And we're not coming back to it and say, I'm looking forward to the next Friday the 13th movie just because I like slashers, but I'm not going to be watching it thinking, this could be a content. This is going to stand on the shoulders of part one. When I'm watching an Alien film at this point, and I think this may be my last Alien movie that I watch, I don't even think I'm going to watch the Hulu TV series because I'm just so done with this. This movie put the nail in the coffin. But there's no chance that anybody who's investing in this movie believes they can make something to stand on the shoulders of the other movie. I mean, think about how people are talking about this. Mark, you said at the beginning of the show, this is the third best Alien film. I've been hearing that all over the internet since this movie started, previewing. So it's like, yeah, it's the third best Alien film, but that's like saying it's the seventh best Leprechaun sequel. No one cares.
Were there that many sequels to Leprechaun? Holy shit.
They made Leprechaun got so deep that they made a sequel to one of the sequels. They made Leprechaun in the Hood, and then they made Leprechaun Back to the Hood. And I watched both of them. I have the scars.
And I'm sitting here hoping that somebody gives David Fincher the money to do Mindhunter season 3. God damn it. This is where Hollywood is so fucked up that they will make that many Leprechaun movies that probably went straight to the video shelves. And then I'm saying to her, can you conclude the whatever BTK killer?
BTK?
Yeah. That's the whole thing that started every episode. And it's like, wasn't that going to be finally when the FBI got it all together and they found him in the third? That's 80 million right there. They could have given him 80 million for that.
Well, I just like that you almost said the BLT killer, Jeff.
I was going to say the BLT killer. That sounds like something that you'd have at either Burger King or Taco Bell, and we do mean killer as in like you're going to be paying for it in the bathroom later.
Oh, all right. Well, I want to pull over because we've got one commenter with many comments. Mr. David Wilt is back. Hello, sir.
No.
If you're still hanging on. All right, we started getting these early, but we were on a roll with the convo. So the title of the movie sounds a lot like the Romulans, who are basically a villain in the Star Trek series, which is ironic because the late Jerry Goldsmith did the score for both original movies, which came out the same year. Oh, that's right. 79 was Alien and
motion picture was 79. That's very good, David.
Man,
nicely done.
And you know what? Damn it. I think I'm putting myself on the hook for another show. I've never seen Star Trek, the motion picture. I own it, but I've never watched it. I've heard the director's cut is very good.
Well, that's debatable.
Oh, is it?
I will say this: if you wanted to literally, Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan reboots the film as if that's the start of the film series.
I've heard that because motion picture goes way far. Like
I've
into
been
the
meaning to
intellectual
do a
or
show on
right?
Star Trek for a while, but yeah, if you do it, I'm there because Star Trek motion picture is my least favorite.
It's your least favorite?
Yes.
Although
Okay.
Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan is not only a great Star Trek movie, I think it's a great science fiction film too. And I think its reputation only builds. Yeah, it really does. Its reputation has only grown. I think it's
and if you look at the
one of the
entire
best.
Star Trek series and how things play out even today in the new Trek, and that everything of that look and everything was established in Wrath of Khan, not motion picture.
That's true. Yeah, and the motion picture, Gene Roddenberry was still obsessed with pajamas.
Oh,
everybody's wearing onesies,
yeah.
And they're just, it's like
we got to stop.
People will have pants in the future.
We've got to stop because I think Jeff and I could go on forever with Trek.
Okay, well, we'll save it for the Star Trek motion picture show. Well,
ahead,
no,
David,
I mean, but something. But I'll get back to David's comment in a second. But something. Speaking of Wrath of Khan, that was something that was a sequel to an episode from the TV series. But you know what? You didn't have to. I didn't see Space Seed, the original episode that gave birth to the Wrath of Khan,
right,
for like 20 years after I saw Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. But I never. First, I don't even know if I realized for a good portion of that it was based on an episode. I just got from the 3 lines of dialogue that kind of describe what happened. I'm like,
really fast.
Right. I'm like, that's great storytelling. All right.
It is.
David says, I think the Alien series is all about the economic corruption because you have this company called Wayland who wants to get their hands on these xenomorphs who they believe that they can control. Very much so. And to what end? I mean, that was one of the interesting things about this movie is like, and I will say that's kind of a cool through line if they explore anything in another movie in this iteration of the franchise, which I probably won't watch. If you think about it, they start off with the xenomorphs. David's experimenting with them. Flash forward to Alien, and the space truckers pick up the xenomorph. The company wants them to bring it back to Earth. They don't really know why. In this one, they're talking about, well, maybe we can perfect humans, and then in Aliens 30 years later, Carter Burke is talking about, well, we can sell it to the weapons division. So there's like this weird behind the scenes evolution of the thinking. I mean, I'd watch a Weyland-Yutani boardroom drama before I'd watch, more of this. Wall Street in the future.
I was talking a little bit with Kate. Katie and I actually did a whole hour because she had a lot of thoughts on Alien Romulus. We did a whole hour review on it, but we were talking, and while no, it's not addressed and it's not laid out for us, I guess it's my, as I've always mentioned, my overactive imagination, but it is interesting to look at the little bits behind this and think just about what things could mean. Like, for instance, Burke says they could sell it to the weapons division, but what says Burke's not playing out for his own card, and that he is a company guy, he's got some other deal lined up. And here's where I'm going with this. So you have Alien Romulus and what happened here, right? And you have them retrieving the alien. The space station's going down with all their research on it. Okay, it hasn't been either transmitted or whatnot. They've been keeping it secret, but something went awry, and they're not sending the space station down to the planet. They're sending it into this ice ring so it could be destroyed, so nobody knows what they've been doing. That's the one specimen they got from LV-426. Okay, is the one alien, and that's getting destroyed by this people on the station. Wasn't Weyland-Yutani's call. Either they did it or the aliens destroyed enough to where the station went down. They lost all that research. They knew, and this is where I was like, wow, this just makes Burke even more of the asshole. He says they didn't know the reason why they're going to the planet. They fully knew the reason why they were going to the planet. And it was not necessarily because of her report so much as the space station, or it was from her report. And that's why they went out there to retrieve the alien from the wreckage, if they could, and I didn't catch that was the wreckage for the Nostromo. I just caught that it was a cocoon that had been drifting, and it drifted into the wreckage. I hadn't caught that it was the wreckage in Nostromo, but either way, they knew of the aliens, so they finally got out there and retrieved it. And the reason Burke wanted to go back out there is because they fully knew what they were doing going back. And, you know, that just makes Burke worse. But the stuff that they learned from the Romulus with the black goo and that all got destroyed on the space station, so that they were trying to do it again. And that was Burke's motivation in Aliens. So, I mean, Romulus does kind of show they knew more than they were leading on in Aliens, that it was more than just her describing the alien in her log. They very well could have known that. Also, it tells you about Weyland-Yutani being the cheapest company in the world, because they don't look what they got. They can have robots, they can have synthetics, they have people doing mining, and instead of giving them detection, they give them canaries in a cage to go down in the mines to check for gas. Which at first I'm like, but then I'm like, well, no, a corporation, if they gave them a tool that would detect gas and that tool was faulty and there was an accident, they could technically get sued. But if they give you a bird to take care of, to take down in there, and you don't pay attention, well, it's not our fault. We gave you the canary to, you know. But I mean, there's bits and pieces here that I think allude to the Weyland, but I would love to see an exploration, and maybe that's what we're going to get with Alien Earth, a more of the Weyland-Yutani corporate machine, because bits and pieces here and there shows that they definitely don't care about people.
Well, I mean, but that's the thing that was established in, you know, the original Alien. You know, all other crew, you know, priorities rescinded. One of the problems with this franchise, as it keeps going on, is it keeps asking questions, but some of those questions have been answered in other movies, and some of them are like, well, you're just pointing out what a, you know, ugly quilt this thing is. You know, if you look at, you know, Carter Burke, yeah, he knew, they all knew about the xenomorph from Ripley's reporting, but also the company, because of the events of Covenant, they knew about David's experiments down on that planet because he was sending transmissions back to them. And, you know, it just gets so convoluted. I'm like, where are the answers to these questions that you've asked in this other movie that you're not going to bother to sequelize? Now I have to watch this other mini franchise shoehorned in between two great movies. I hope it goes somewhere, but again, I'm not going to find out. All right, so we're going over here, but let's see. David also says, watching the original movie, you realize Ripley doesn't start out being the one in charge. Right. Dallas is the one who calls the shots, but after he's killed, the torch is bad. Literally, the torch is passed to her. Yeah. The original movie, during the opening scene, if you look closely, you can spot the Mr. Fusion fuel tank, which used the DeLorean in the Back to the Future series. Is that true? I never noticed that. And then also, I noticed how in the trailer they dropped the F-bomb, which is the first time that trailer uses it's the Red Band trailer. F-bombs are prolific nowadays in Red Band trailers, which is kind of unfortunate because I've been in PG-13 movies where they show Red Band trailers. I'm like, what are you doing? But I gotta say, you mentioned the Mr. Fusion thing. I remember the little bird water dropper thing from Alien. It's kind of cool looking. They have that in this movie. In the beginning, when Rain and Andy are sitting down and talking at that cafe, there's one of those things sitting on the table for no reason. I'm like, guys, what are you doing? You have to try harder.
Easter eggs are not storytelling.
No, it's all meant to be like
I mean, that's why it reminded me in some respects of Deadpool. It's like it's all referencing other stuff and taking you kind of out of the movie, because that's what Deadpool does in the comics. That's what he did in the movies, and that's what he does here. But this should not be, oh, I remember that line. I mean, just, oh my God. And yet this is what filmmakers are satisfied with today. And it bothers me to no end that this is the amount of creativity that, you know, what we did, we found a fun way to bring in that line, but we'll have Andy say it. Oh God.
But but I want to close on this point, because getting back to, you know, the people who made this movie, because I've seen the behind the scenes stuff with them, and, you know, Fede Alvarez, he's a more than a competent filmmaker. He seems to be passionate about genre, and he's really into making this movie. You know, what did he think about putting those lines in there? That you've got the line that Rook delivers about "I won't lie to you about your chances." You've got "Get away from here, bitch," and then also you've got "I prefer the term artificial person myself," which is a great line that reveals so much about the Bishop character in Aliens. That here it's just like, oh yeah, here's Bishop's line from Aliens. That doesn't belong to you. Why are you saying that? Am I supposed to believe that the androids have this, just a slate of things that they can possibly say? It's like pulling the string on a Chatty Cathy doll, like they said in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. I don't think so, but it just doesn't make any damn sense. But I think I'm closing the chapter on Alien Romulus, and unfortunately, I'm closing the chapter on Alien, the franchise. Thank you, Disney, for everything. By which I mean nothing. But anyway, I'm glad we had this discussion. Mark, I'm glad you enjoyed the movie and were able to find something to enjoy in it. I will say that this movie it cheered me up only in the respect that, here's where I get on my soapbox. Cinemark. I drove an hour from Chicago to Woodridge, Illinois to go to the Cinemark because they've got the really cool Alien Romulus popcorn bucket. They don't really have Cinemarks here in the city. They got one in like Melrose Park or something, but I was going to visit a friend and yada, yada, yada. It's a long story. Drove an hour out there. It's opening day for Alien Romulus. I'm going to get me a popcorn bucket. I go up there. The guy at the counter, when I asked him, he said, "Oh yeah, we sold out of those." I said, "You sold out of them?" He's like, "Yeah, we started." Yeah, I said, "It's opening day." And he said, "Yeah, we started selling them like a few days before the movie." I'm like, "And it's sold out already?" I've heard stories, and you can see on eBay that these stories are true. People going to, well, I guess they're all sold out now, but going and like buying up all of them. Cinemark, Regal, AMC, I'm talking to all of you. Put caps on these things. 1 bucket per ticket. You want to buy 50 tickets to see Alien Romulus? Go for it. But then,
how dumb are they too? They're giving, they're buying the bucket of popcorn with the Romulus shtick to it before the Alien movie opens, which is getting them into the theater and making the box office numbers for them. It's like they're being disrespectful. It's like that should not have even been out on the shelves until the day that Alien opened.
Right. But you know what they did have, and this is where the whole like fishy thing of like, oh, we've only had out a couple of days before opening. They had every kind of Beetlejuice popcorn bucket you could ever want. And that movie doesn't come out for like a month or whatever it is. So that's my rant. I really wanted an Alien Romulus popcorn bucket. I've been thinking about this thing for a month and a half since I first saw the teaser video. I'm like, I love this. I have to have one. I'm a huge Alien fan since I was a kid. This movie cured me of that. When I walked out, I'm like, I'm glad I didn't give this studio, this theater, this whatever, another $25 or $40 of my money because I'm done. That's not to say if anyone out there watching this has a spare and would like to gift it to me, you can message me and I'll send you my P.O. box. First,
keeping with my theme of this show, Ian and Mark, I would say that is cynical marketing.
But I love me a good popcorn bucket. You know me.
I didn't mean to offend by saying with the cynical
no
angle, but I will say this one thing that I think we can take away with is we mentioned the $80 million budget, and maybe this is why I looked at it more as a person just enjoying movies instead of critic, was the fact that they showed you can still do a lot of practical and make it look really good.
For sure.
Because one thing, even with the complaints ahead, as you mentioned, you both mentioned, at least the aesthetic looks good. To have them have practical sets, switches and toggles and actual monitors. And as you said, Jeff, being able to look directly at something that's actually there rather than a little golf ball means a lot. And here is a franchise, in quotes, film, here's a big film for an IP that's doing it with as limited CGI as they possibly could. And let me tell you, those space scenes where it is CGI looked gorgeous. The ship scenes, the scenes in space looked beautiful. And maybe that was part of it, is that it took me back to the late 80s, early 90s sci-fi where you had sets and it's one of those things where we don't realize we miss it until we see a new film do it again. And you're like, man, I loved that, because we've seen so much stagecraft CGI, puke basically for a production design, a Quantumania. I'm looking at you, that you forget what a film actually can look like. And then the lighting that they did in this film, because they had practical effects, felt so much more grounded than being CGI. And if anything, while many people may not come back to visit this film, I know you guys won't, if someone watches this years later, it won't be as dated as far as its look goes versus most of the stuff that's come out by MCU. You look at it, the majority of the stuff here, outside of the acid blood scene, which I could have done without, I get it, but almost all the practical effects in here were just I loved them. I loved seeing practical sets and effects, and that for me, I guess, touched a little bit inside of me, taking me back to the day when sci-fi actually did that. So,
well, I appreciate that, Mark, but you just reminded me of something, which, it makes me even more agitated. Speaking of which, Agitation Free says, can't listen because I need to see it, but will later. Thanks, guys.
Didn't mean to agitate anybody. If I did, I apologize.
No. But okay, speaking of practical effects, I mean, it's great, but you got to do something with them. Think back to the original Alien, where Ripley has to set the self-destruct on the Nostromo. And there's these 4 giant cylinders that come up out of the ground. She's got to set everything, and these weird toggles and doors that she has to do is very complex. And then she realizes, wait a second, I don't want to blow myself up. And she goes back and she tries to stop it, but she can't. She's trying to pull the thing up and push the thing down. And you really feel that struggle. It feels as if there's an actual person fighting against something that's going to destroy them. In this movie, yeah, everything's practical, but it doesn't do anything. It's just sets. It's just, aesthetics and window dressing. And that's great. But I didn't notice it after the first 10 minutes.
And I understand it, but I guess my point was with mentioning it was just the fact that, not that they will, but it shows you can do a sci-fi film with more practical than CGI for a decent budget. And we've seen it even with CGI. We saw it with Godzilla -1, the budget they did and the CGI they did. I mean, if you look at, at the balance you could do with this, you don't need $100, $200, $400 million film, but yet have all your sets be CGI. You can build sets and they will come. But
well, what you're saying, Mark, is that you can be very clever with the dollar, and
right.
it doesn't always have to be, everything costs $300 million today and all that. No, Ex Machina won the Oscar versus all these $250 million competitors, and for a $15 million budget, because they did the one thing they had to do flawlessly, and that is they made her look like a robot with the see-through stuff, and every shot had to look perfect, and it did, and it served the story, and it was maybe more impactful to that. The trouble now is we need to get them to spend that much time on the caretaking of a script.
Oh yeah,
I love the fact that they do this.
That, sure.
No, but I'm just saying what you're saying is sometimes they slough off on the effects and the sets, and they look like shit. Here they didn't. They said, we can do this, and we'll do it for the price, and we'll make it right, and you can figure these things out. Now they just have to make a script that serves sci-fi and the franchise properly. But Ian's already given up, so.
Yeah, Hulu,
I know. Hulu, you're late. You're late, Hulu.
It's like
if you're going to tell us what happened to the aliens on Earth and with the franchise, the boardrooms, so be it. But Ian will not be there.
The franchise is about 30 years late with what they're doing with the Hulu series. We got a freaking trailer, a teaser fucking trailer, pardon my French, with Alien 3 that says, in space, no one could hear you scream. And it was like this tracking shot over this smoking crater, but on Earth, everyone could hear you scream. And it showed an egg opening up, and it said Alien 3. And we didn't have the internet back then. We had Cinema Fantastique, which was already a month old. So anything in there was out of date anyway, as far as film info. And we were like, are we getting aliens on Earth? And no one knew much until they released the book and the movie. And we're like, this is not that.
If Ian, if only Starlog had still been a magazine, they might have.
Well,
covered
yeah,
it properly.
Starlog as well, yeah, and the
Well,
original Fangoria and all that. But sorry,
I can recommend it, and Jeff and I talked about this a little bit the other day. I can recommend. Dark Horse Comics had the license for Aliens for decades, but
yes,
Marvel Comics got the license now, and they're putting out some interesting Aliens and Predator comics. Not all great, but you know they're miles better. Look, okay, the opening 10 minutes of the director's cut of Rebel Moon Part 1, which I am now going through, all 6 hours of it. The opening 10 minutes of that is better than anything in Alien Romulus. But the Marvel Comics reprints of the Dark Horse series, which you can find in a giant like $40 volume, I think it reprints the first like 5 series of those comics, full of great artwork, full of fantastic ideas that really advance the story of what could be going on with this universe, with these characters. Now, these comics came out in '89, so Ripley and Newt and Hicks all survive, and it's their continuing adventures. But you know, it's better than pretty much anything that came after.
The most recent Alien series, which came out a couple years ago when you got me into comics again, I picked that up. That one was decent because it explored more into the racism against synthetics and they explored a whole nother angle of the social structure of the world, plus also aliens. But then the really good one that I would recommend, it came out a year ago or so, was the Predator series that they came out with. They came out with a new Predator comic, like an 8-parter or 6-parter, about this woman going on a revenge tour, basically hunting down predators to find the one that killed her parents. And it's wonderful.
It is. And to wrap up, I promise we are ending the show now.
That's my fault.
No, but I'm glad you brought it up, because that comic, I mean, that's a Hulu series. That's a movie right there. Why can no one get this right in Hollywood in the screenplay level? We'll never know. At least I won't. Anyway, thank you everybody for hanging out and for watching us talk about a movie that is only 40 minutes longer than this conversation. But it's been a fun one. And I'm Ian Simmons of Kicking the Seat. We have Jeff York of The Establishing Shot and Pipeline Artists. We have Mark the Movie Man Krawczyk of Special Mark Productions and The Spoiler Room. Thanks, Mark, for staying up with us. I know you're feeling under the weather, and I know this couldn't have helped. But
no. If it helps any, it's what I expected. No offense to anyone. I kind of expected this is the way it was going to go, just because I've known both you gentlemen so well. Well, not well, but just our opinions on movies. I kind of figured this is where it was going to go, and that's not a slam. That's not anything. I just kind of figured. So I just wanted to show up and maybe try to give a little bit of a.
You had the positive experience with Katie.
I had a positive experience.
Not so positive.
I had a positive experience overall. I still had problems with it, but overall I had a positive experience.
Our acidic commentary was almost as vicious as that in the alien's bloodstream.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, guys, thank you so much. Thanks to you out there who are watching this, past, present, and future. Thank you, David and Agitation Free, for commenting. And feel free to comment out there if you're watching this on the replay. What did you think of Alien Romulus? What did you think of our opinions? Are we being too overly analytical? Not analytical enough? What is going on with this franchise? Tell us all. And I'll read through them and maybe we'll address them on a future show. Not a future Alien show, because as I mentioned, franchise is dead to me. Anyway, thanks everybody. Have a great night until next time, whenever that is, whatever that is. Thanks very much and take care.